Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Battlefield 6's vehicles. So whilst Battlefield 6, I think we can all agree, was a pretty positive experience, I had a ton of fun playing the beta, cannot wait for the full release of the game, there were certain pain points, certain problem points in the game, and a lot of those were around the vehicles for me. So in this video, I want to outline all of the problems as I see it with the jets, the helicopters, and the ground armor, and what I think DICE really need to look at rectifying before the release of the game. They do still have some time, they are going to be doing labs testing for the next couple of months, so hopefully some of those things have already been fixed and there's going to be more to come. As always, if you guys enjoy the content here on the channel, don't forget to hit that sub button. I'll be keeping you guys up to date on everything Battlefield 6 and beyond, and as always, thank you guys so much for the support. Okay, so first of all, let's talk a bit about the air vehicles, starting with the jets here. So the jets in Battlefield 6 do have some positives. They were extremely atmospheric, they looked really cool, the contrails looked amazing, all of the sound and the visual design around the jets was great, but for me, that is pretty much where the positive side of things end. So dogfighting in Battlefield 6 is pretty much non-existent, unfortunately, and there's a number of reasons for that. There is speed control, so from what I can tell, speed control is anywhere between 350 and like 370 or 80. You kind of want your speed around there. That allows you to turn roughly the tightest, although there wasn't a test range, so I wasn't able to try things out properly. So there definitely is some sort of semblance of speed control in there, as we saw in Battlefield 4, and that's going to require more testing. But the bigger problem here for me is that there is no rear view camera, and once they've added this 360 degree third person camera, you can't move the jet while you're looking through there, and having a rear view camera that you can very quickly flick to see what the enemy jet behind you is doing is absolutely paramount to dogfighting. There's also no audio feedback, like really at all. You barely hear the enemy jet buzz past you. You will occasionally pick up a little bit of feedback, okay, there's like a jet somewhere around me, but it doesn't give you any kind of useful information. You just know that somewhere in the vicinity there's a jet, and the direction you heard the sound from doesn't always equate to where that jet is. Most of the time though, you won't hear anything, the jet will sneak up on your 6, and you'll be dead before you know it. The air radar, of course, wasn't working in this build. That is something I assume has hopefully already been fixed and is going to be coming at launch, but in the beta build, no air radar makes it, again, just really difficult to fly. I mean, there was an air radar, but it was basically like, it was as if it was super zoomed in, so whenever a jet flew past it, they were gone in a split second and you couldn't really see anything. So I think the air-to-air gameplay needs those things to be rectified. Now, when it comes to the weapons on the jets, the jet cannons are sort of all over the place. They do way too much damage to helicopters and jets. Like, they probably need to be nerfed by 50%. And again, this ties into dogfighting. Like, if somebody gets not behind you, but just anywhere close to you and lets out a little spurt of bullets, you're gone, dude. Like, helicopters, they don't stand a chance. There's no way that they can rectify their flight path. If they're getting strafed by a jet and have a chance at surviving, they will just be dead. So the cannons really need to be nerfed. But then at the same time, I didn't find like they did much damage to tanks on the ground. And I think, especially for an attack jet, which is the jets we were using in the beta, they should really be built around the cannon and doing damage to tanks on the ground. They were also pretty useless, I found, against infantry. So they basically have so much spread that even if you are the most accurate jet pilot on the planet and you're aiming right on the hitbox of an infantry soldier, you may not even get a hit simply because they have crazy spread, which is something that we saw at the start of Battlefield 2042, and over time they did actually rein in the spread a little bit so that you could get some kills on infantry, but they decrease the damage, right? And that's what I'd like to see them do with Battlefield 6's jets as well, just decrease the damage of the cannons, but reward people for aiming for long periods of time at a target with a kill, right? I have to say though, overall, the gameplay of strafing ground targets was pretty boring. Basically what it equated to was you fly down, you equip your bombs, you hope that there was some infantry spotted somewhere on the ground, you try to find as big of a cluster as infantry as you can, you drop your bombs, you get a couple of kills, you do a 180, you come around, do the same thing, and then you fly to one of the vehicle resupply stations, and you restock your bombs and you just do it all over again. It didn't really feel like that difficult. It didn't really feel that rewarding either. You don't get particularly rewarded well for just getting kills in Battlefield. You have to, like, PTFO, you need to be repairing, you need to be capping objectives, reviving people, etc. So even if you do really, really well in a jet and get a bunch of kills in that manner, you will still find yourself at the bottom of the scoreboard. So really the experience overall of flying in a jet was wholly an unfulfilling one. Now, you do also get AGMs, and those were actually fine. I think, like, they did some good damage, 25 damage to tanks, and you could link them with the bombs, which also did 25 damage, so you could, like, come down, drop an AGM, drop a bomb, and do 50% damage, and if you worked in some damage from the cannons as well, I think you could, like, almost one-strafe tanks. And there is certainly some skill to that, using up all of that strafing time, because you don't get a lot of it, to output as much damage as possible. There is some skill expression there, but I think we mainly just need to look into the cannons here. Again, I think damage of bombs is fine, damage of AGMs is fine, but the whole gameplay loop of strafing the ground, it just didn't really feel that fulfilling as the same as it did to me in Battlefield 4, where you got the little JDAM screen in the cockpit, and you had to be, like, really, really, really accurate with the bombs to get a kill. Now, on the topic of resupplying, the resupply boxes were broken in the game. So there was one for NATO and there was one for Pax Armata, and if you were playing as NATO, you could actually utilize both of the resupply stations in the jet. If you were playing as Pax, pretty much you're unlucky, mate, because you cannot use either of them. And the way that repairing in this game works is that once you get down in the red, and by the way, one Stinger does 90% damage to you, which I think is far too much. It disables you and puts you in the red straight away, so if you've taken a tiny bit of chip damage from anything, one Stinger will kill you. But the only way that you can repair is by going to one of these resupply stations. And obviously, since you couldn't do that as Pax, there was pretty much no point even playing the jet. So you only got, like, every other game on Liberation Peak to practice in them. But then when you were playing as NATO, it was almost too easy, because you could fly past your own resupply station, and then you could fly past the enemy one. Now, of course, I assume they're going to fix this. It was just a bug, right? It's going to be fine in the full version of the game. But I don't really feel like these resupply stations add much to the game. You're kind of flying around the battlefield anyway. Dipping down to one of these stations to restock your bombs and repair may actually be even more overpowered than if you just repaired automatically. I think it's going to take you out of the fight for less time than when we saw, you know, in Battlefield 2042 or Battlefield 4, where you simply had to wait for your jet to auto-repair. So some other slight things that need to be tweaked here. I think the out-of-bounds areas on Liberation Peak were too small, especially for the air vehicles, and the flight ceiling was a little bit too low as well. Obviously, I haven't seen the rest of the maps yet, so maybe they're going to be changed there, but I would like to see DICE tweak that. Right-clicking in any mode actually takes you into this black and white, like a targeting pod screen. I'm pretty sure that that screen was busted, it was broken, it just felt like really difficult to change where I was aiming in that screen, so I don't know what DICE need to do to fix that, but they need to look into it. Also, the minimap zoom on N key doesn't work, so I kept trying to hit N, which would normally zoom your minimap in and out. That wasn't working for me, whether I was in the air or I was on the ground as infantry, it just didn't work, so that needs to be fixed. I did like the auto zoom when going in a building though, as infantry. I do think that is a nice touch. And then finally here, the double launcher absolutely needs to go for engineers. So if you weren't aware, as an engineer, you could take both an RPG and the Stinger, and you only get one jet and one helicopter per team on Liberation Peak, and there's like 10 engineers in an enemy team. You know that every single one of them has a Stinger as well as an RPG, and the RPGs are super fast in this game. It's really not hard to snipe air vehicles out of the air, and that means engineers can both use the RPGs, of which they get 5, and 5 Stingers. So basically, you spend 90% of the game hitting flares and trying to dodge Stingers. And that, while on the subject of it, is a nice segue. The flares in the game, they really need to be looked into as well. I think it's an easy fix, and the problem is they simply last far too short of a time. Like, if you do not hit your flares and immediately get out of dodge and fly away from the battlefield or down to the ground, you will get locked again and killed. Now, on the plus side, the flares do have a really, really short cooldown, so I think that's what they've gone for here. They don't last very long, but they have a super short cooldown, so you can get into the fight really, really quickly again. And if you are a good pilot and you utilize the terrain to your best ability, you can find you can dodge a bunch of stingers, but again, with every single engineer running stingers and everybody has 5 stingers, you just get constantly spammed with stingers all the time, and you can't do anything. So I do think the jets have some potential. Like I said at the start, there is some kind of speed control in the game. I think, you know, if DICE fix all of those problem points there, we could see some decent dogfighting open up. We could see a decent game loop of strafing ground targets and, you know, trying to survive in the jets. I don't think they're ever going to be as good as Battlefield 4's jets, and I think really if DICE wanted to recreate Battlefield 4's jets, you know, a lot of people speculate that they just don't have the same people to make them. I think they would be fully capable of this, but they just don't want to. I think right now they want jets in a place where, you know, you get in your jet, you drop a couple of bombs, you get a couple of kills, you have your fun, and then you just die. I really feel like that's sort of just where they want jets to be, and if that's the case, then, like, I'm just never going to spawn in a jet. There is no point to me. You may as well just remove them from the game. So hopefully DICE are going to listen to this feedback, and your guys' feedback as well. I'm definitely going to be sending this to anybody that I can. And I know they have said that in labs testing, they are going to open up around the vehicles and really start testing them a lot, so I am hopeful we're going to see some improvements here. Now moving on, let's talk a little bit about the helicopters. I feel like a lot of the pain points of the jets affect the helicopters as well, so the flares work in exactly the same way. You know, they last for too short, stingers do way too much damage. The helicopters, of course, get strafed super quickly by the jets, so they didn't really stand much of a chance. But the main problem that I have with them is the flight model. Now, according to David Serlin, the lead producer, he says that they've modeled them on exactly the Battlefield 4 model. So basically, they started off with Battlefield 4 helicopters, and then they've tweaked them from there. And I don't know how they tweaked them, I don't know which direction they went, but they do not feel powerful enough. And when I say powerful, I'm not talking about the weapons, I'm talking about the mobility, the power of the rotor. You need to be able to pull off better maneuvers in the helicopter. A lot of the stuff that you will be able to do in Battlefield 4 does not work in this game. It just kind of feels like you're flying a house, you know, through the mountains. And so I don't think it's actually that huge of a fix for DICE. I think they need to just basically, like, slide the power curve up a little bit so the rotor responds more, and they should feel a much more quick and snappy than they do before. I know this was a problem in Battlefield 2042 once again, and this is exactly what they did. There was a patch where they made the attack helicopters a little bit quicker, a little bit snappier, and it was a massive improvement, and I think everybody loved it. And that leads us finally onto the tanks and the ground armor, the IFVs. I've left these to last because honestly I had the most fun in them, and I feel like they are the most finished, but there are still some issues with them. So first of all, tanks are majorly reliant upon engineers, and I don't know if it was just because of the repair quest, but repairing as engineer is really, really powerful, especially if you use like the number 6 ability, like your last of the abilities that you unlock in the tree. You repair the tank so quick, and if you've got a couple of engineers doing that, good luck killing the tank. But then, on the flip side, RPGs are so plentiful in the game, and they do so much damage that you will get taken out in a split second, sometimes without any hope of repairing whatsoever. So it sort of feels like all the vehicles in the game are major glass cannons, and I think DICE have pushed a little bit too far in that direction where some of that skill expression has been removed, because a lot of the time you just don't get chance to heal up, you know, repair up, dodge, whatever it is, and survive in a conflict. I will say that the RPGs in the game feel far too easy to use. It's just like the recoilless launcher from Battlefield 2042. There's barely any drop on them. They're super fast. I won't say they're like hit scan, but I mean, you can see this shot here on a helicopter, right, from that distance. Like, they do just like crazy damage to stuff, and they just feel, compared to BF4's RPGs, like they're not the most difficult launcher to use. And let's bear in mind, guys, there are going to be more launchers coming to the game, right? There's the Carl Gustav, there is like something like the MBT Law from BF4 that locks onto vehicles, there's the Javelin, and the RPG, I'm assuming, is supposed to be like the slowest firing one, the most difficult to use out of the bunch. And if this is the speed it travels at, I feel like it's just way too easy, man. Another big one for me was the vehicle UIs in general. They just looked extremely placeholder. I think this goes for the UI, it goes for the menus, it goes for the front end when you're picking a game mode. Like, a lot of the UI stuff in general in the Battlefield 6 beta looked really placeholder, so I'm hoping to see much of that changed up. But when it comes to the ground armor, you don't even know who is gunning with you, or like from what squad they are. I mean, you can tell if they're in your squad or if they're in a team, and then they'll have a number on them. So if you see like a number 2, that means they're the number 2 player in your squad, and then you got to look at your squad and be like, okay, well, who is that? It's the readability of it is not fantastic. A lot of players probably won't even realize like which seat is the driver's seat, which seat is the gunner seat. What do all the other seats mean? Is one of them, is there like a third seat, or the rest of them just passengers? Like, you can't really tell from the UI, so I think that needs a bit of an overhaul. It also doesn't tell you the name of like the shell that you have equipped unless you're in third person, and for me, I didn't even realize, and maybe some of you guys never realized, that if you press the number 4 button, at least if you're on PC, you can actually change from multi-purpose shells to armor-piercing anti-armor shells. I had no idea because the game just doesn't really make it obvious or convey it to you via the UI, and these did like so much damage to enemy armor. I want to say like 60-70% damage, so you could two-shot tanks with these, and if you found that happening to you, that's probably what the enemy were using there. Again, on the topic of weapons and the glass cannon build here, I really feel like all of the HMGs, the LMGs on the vehicles, whether it was your secondary as the driver or whether it's your passenger, they did insane damage to infantry. Like, it was really hard to run away as infantry and survive if somebody could aim well and they saw you with one of these cannons. So yeah, I kind of just feel like DICE have this new philosophy of all of the vehicles in the game are going to be like major glass cannons. You're going to do insane damage with them, but you're going to die really easily. And I feel like they need to roll that back a little bit and then give some extra skill expression. For example, you know, tuning up the spread there on the jet cannons so that if you are good in the jets and you can aim at infantry on the ground and that infantry doesn't move and dodge out the way, you're actually able to get a kill. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you did get kills, but it wasn't down to your own skill, it was down to luck, right, of where the spread actually landed. So I'm going to leave it here, guys. I know this has been a pretty long video, but all points I thought needed mentioning. If any of you guys played in the vehicles during the beta, I would love to know how you felt about them. Also, if you're not an infantry player and you just played infantry, what did you feel about the vehicles? Did you find them too powerful? Like, maybe you were just getting absolutely smashed by them in a split second. Maybe you found them too easy to kill as engineers. Comment down below and let me know your guys' experience of it. If you want these problems to be fixed and you agree with me, feel free to share this video. I think the more people see it, the more likely that somebody from DICE or EA is going to watch this video and maybe take some of this feedback into account. But otherwise, liking the video is a great help as well. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Battlefield 6, and I will see you all in the next one.